Good evening, citizens of Portsmouth and my colleagues on City Council, city staff, and all in attendance. I now call the public works session to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes? Mr. Hugo?
Present.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Here.
Mr. Moody?
Here.
Mr. Tillage?
Here.
Dr. Whitaker?
Present.
Mr. Glover? Mayor Glover?
Here. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
And at this moment, I want to welcome our interim city manager, Terry. Ma'am? Oh, I was looking for you. I'm still getting used to this position, so bear with me. With that in mind, ma'am, you have the floor.
Good evening. Thank you, Honorable Mayor. The first topic on the agenda today is the City Council retreat discussion. That will be led by Ms. Dee Wright. If you would please approach. Ms. Dee Wright is the Deputy City Manager. She started with the city. She has 30-plus years of experience in local government. Thank you for your time, and you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of Portsmouth City Council, Interim City Manager. I'm sorry, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Interim City Manager and staff. I am Dee Wright, Deputy City Manager, and this brief presentation is regarding City Council retreat dates. Okay, I guess I don't know how to work this. No, I think I cut it off. Oh, there we go. Okay, the current retreat dates are February 3rd and 4th of 2023. The new proposed dates are Friday, April 14th and Saturday, April the 15th of 2023. Okay, I must be pressing it too fast. There we are. We are requesting to change the dates due to the recent change in administration to secure a location. Additional preparation time is needed. Staff needs to identify a facilitator and establish topics of discussion. Not to mention, we're also in the midst of...
Excuse me, Ms. Wright, ma'am, could you speak clear or move the mic closer to your, yes.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes, that's better, ma'am.
We're also in the midst of the 2024 budget preparation. We want to ensure expectations are met and that this is a positive experience for all those involved. Therefore, staff is requesting consensus to change the retreat dates to April 14th and 15th of 2024.
Thank you, ma'am. If we could, at this time, do we have any discussion around this particular request? The floor is open for discussion. Seeing none, then we will need to have a consensus, and all we need to show a consensus is a show of hands that we all are in agreement with the dates and the process moving forward. So if we could please see a show of hands. That this show of hands are appropriate for a consensus. Therefore, we can proceed forward, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. If it pleases council, I would like to do the presentation on public utility services fees, and if I may ask, could I please stand before you in this presentation?
Yes, ma'am. If you would go to the podium.
So again, thank you all I would like to present to you some information on utility fees. I'm actually bringing this before council now because we're in the midst of our budget preparation time for proposed budget 2024. These are some things that I had actually been working on, and I just wanted to bring them back to council that would allow council to make a decision on how you would allow us or would want us to move forward. So I would be asking for your direction at the conclusion of this presentation. So one of the things that I wanted to do is bring to light some of the facts surrounding our utility fees. One of the things that we've talked about in the past are deposits. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but if you are not a homeowner and you're a tenant or renting property, you have a deposit that is required before turning on service of $170. So again, let me just make sure we're clear. If you're renting, your deposit is $170. If you own the property, your deposit is $0. The deposits are applied toward the final bill or at the termination of service. Just as a means to understand or give an example, if you rent your home for 20 years, you will not receive that deposit until you terminate your services or transfer your services. So those deposits stay on the books in the escrow account. However, it does not receive or interest is paid or applied to these deposits. Service is, they are not applied to your bill within 6 to 12 months of having service. It literally ends when you terminate your service. So if you're in a place for 20 years, your deposit sits for 20 years. Fees and facts. New account fee. When a customer comes and initiates water services, there's a $12 fee that establishes your service. And there's a $5 transfer fee associated with changing or transferring your services if you are moving or what have you. So this is a comparison of sister cities. So what we did, and this goes back to a reflection of June 30th, 2022, these fees may have increased with the new budget year of '23. However, this is where I left off. So Newport News, Norfolk, Williamsburg, Suffolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake were amongst the cities that we did a comparison to. Newport News, Williamsburg, and Portsmouth are the only places that require a deposit for initiating service. Service fees are established. Let me back up. Deposits are applied at the termination, and you can see what those are identified in the last group of this slide. Commercial, if you are a commercial customer, there's a $300 fee applied for your deposit, and the setup fee is the same across the board of $25. So if you're a business, you are required to pay a deposit of $300. If you are just a resident establishing services, you're required to pay $170. This is tenants, as you can see. So if there's additional questions later, we could go back, but I just wanted you to see where we are in the chart. And some cities don't charge a deposit at all. What fee changes are you recommending, Ms. Terry? So I'm actually recommending a reduction to these fees from $170 to $50 for all customers, tenants, renters, property owners establishing new services. So it would go, they pay anyway, so it would go from $25 to $50. It would reduce it from $170, which is the deposit now just for tenants. Okay. No change in commercial deposit. It's $300 because of the volume of water that they use. So this would more so be a relief to our customers that are citizens. Thank you. That are citizens. Establish a $50 non-refundable setup fee for residential and commercial customers. Right now, it's $25. If we're given a reduction in the deposit, then we would look at increasing the service fee simply because of the setup fee. What is required? You call, you come in, you establish service. our employees go out, they hook up your meter, do the meter, now you have services, you're a new customer. So that fee would just adjust by $25. Establish a monthly billing cycle instead of a bi-monthly billing cycle for our citizens, and I'll touch on that in the next slide. Why are you recommending this change, Ms. Terry? So, fair and equity for renters and tenants regarding deposits. Relief to residents to apply deposits earlier. In other words, we're looking at if I have this deposit, just like Dominion or Columbia Gas, they will apply that deposit to your bill in 6 months as long as you've paid on time, or 12 months after having service. It's just you did the right, hey, you were able to pay, I just want to thank you. Not really, but yes, for what you've been able to do your stuff on time. Relief to residents on a monthly billing cycle, which would reduce delinquencies and shutoffs. For instance, we have this bi-monthly cycle. If you're delinquent in your bi-monthly cycle and you weren't able to pay for those 2 months, now I'm in a new cycle and I'm not able to pay. I'm already 4 months behind. And that bill consists of 2 to 3 full months. So how can I dig myself out of this if I keep getting behind? What we tried to do during COVID is extend installment agreements. We extended them from 3 months to 12 months. Anything that we could do to help relieve some of the burden from our customers who maybe did not qualify for the COVID relief. And again, as a reminder, when you get your bill is not just utilities, it consists of trash. So now I'm behind in my trash, I'm behind in my water, I can't catch up. Even if I can catch up my water, I'm maybe not able to catch up my trash. Therefore, my service is still shut off because it's all one bill. 4 months behind. How much do we currently have in deposits? So all of the money that we have in deposits are set up in an escrow account. Deposits in escrow, as I received the report yesterday, was $1.4 million. Residential and commercial accounts with deposits in escrow equal 9,558 accounts, commercial and residential, with deposits on accounts. Whether the accounts are active or inactive, they are still accounts with a deposit or escrow account, a deposit sitting in escrow. My concern, the oldest unapplied deposit to date is 10/22/1926. Got a little problem there. The amount is $25. The smallest unapplied deposit to date is $5. I have a recommendation, but I don't want to speak too soon. I just want to give you the facts so we can move forward in making a decision. So the reason why I'm bringing this up now is here we are in the midst of budget. My plan to do this is to come to council with these things that we would like to make changes on. This would require an ordinance. In making this change, what I would like to do is anything budget-wise or ordinance that needs an ordinance related to fees that council needs to give direction on, I want to bring those forth. And then later, whether another council meeting or the next council meeting, once you determine if that's what you want to do, because I'm sure you'll get phone calls from citizens asking questions about this, to give you as much information as possible so when you speak to the citizens in your district or around the city, you'll be prepared to answer the questions. And they may give you feedback that would be impactful to doing this, that maybe I didn't think of, or maybe I didn't consider, but I'm sure they're going to tell you. So you're the ears and eyes in the community. So giving you this information now charges you with having the information, being able to make a decision while we're doing the proposed budget to implement this if this is the desire of council, because I can always come back and give you more information as needed, but now the public has an understanding of why we are looking at changing fees and how it would benefit them in the meantime. So, may I get a consensus to move forward in continuing to review these fees and the changes, or to provide, council to provide me with direction on what you would have me to do next as part of this adjustment, because there will be many more to come.
Thank you, ma'am. And before we go to a consensus, we do need to have a discussion, and Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Terry. I would be in favor of doing away with the total deposit, considering the high level of poverty in the city, and also the fact that Portsmouth is, of the 7 cities, there are only 3 that are requiring the deposit. And so I would be in favor of just doing away with the deposit altogether. Also, when a tenant moves to another rental property, is that deposit returned and then another deposit has to be paid, or how does that work?
My understanding, and I'm hoping I'm not speaking out of terms, but I will look, the transfer fee of $5. So they don't get the deposit back, but they have to pay an additional $5 to actually perform the transfer.
So in addition to the $170 that's on the books, then they have to pay a $5. Now, that $5 transfer fee, will that still be in place if there's a deposit that's that's not on the books anymore? So if we don't require the deposit, will there still be a transfer fee?
Yes, and what we can do is come back and look at to see if that transfer fee is sufficient. What I can do is go back to the other localities and compare what their transfer fee is amount. Because if we do away with the deposit, then they will likely be willing to pay those other fees. It could be $5 or $10. These fees go back to 2010, 2003. So we need to take a deeper dive at what is consistent with across the board in the 7 cities now, and what's consistent for us, because again, we have different needs for the city, but our fees are the same. So we need to look at where we're going in order and try to help us get there without taking on so much other responsibility.
Right, and so also the increase by $25 of the setup fee, if anything, I think we should just keep that where it is, a constant, and not add on any additional cost.
So one of the reasons I was looking at the $25 from 25 to 50 is because our competing priorities with utilities and what it takes to start a service. So in other words, we have our employees, we're trying to go to all electronic meters because we still have manual meters. So employees go out, they get the call, they go out to start up service. It actually puts more onus on us because now people aren't waiting. They don't have to, they just do their application, come and get it, and now we can go ahead and get it started. There's not that lag time. So for that, that's going to cost. I'm sure that it's going to cost us additional employees to do some of those things because we're trying to upgrade our services. Our core services need some additional attention. So that's why I was looking at maybe increasing that fee just to make sure that we're covered for long term and what's to come as we continue to implement changes.
Have we looked at the transient nature of persons here in Portsmouth as far as them moving from place to place?
Yeah, and my apologies, I didn't bring that as part of, but I can actually bring that as a report back, Ombudsman. Yes, so that we can all be charged with the same information.
Councilman Hugo, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Terry, thanks for this. I agree with Councilman Whitaker. $170 kind of makes sense, but if you're not going to charge kind of normal billing, then an arbitrary deposit doesn't make too much sense to me. We're trying to attract renters to the city. All these hidden fees are detrimental to be able to do that. So I would agree that no deposit or 170, and if we're going to walk away from 170, then no deposit makes sense to me. You didn't say what you intend to do with the deposits that are in escrow. Is the intention to then go back to each of those accounts and apply those deposits immediately to the accounts or at the 6 and 12 month period if they haven't reached those 6 and 12 month period?
Wonderful question, thank you. So what I was going to bring after we kind of figured out where we were. So the strategy, but I'm working it through, is the intent would be, if you have an active account, because remember in accounting, you write off accounts after 5, 10 years. So if you have an active account, and I'm looking at a 10-year period, then we would apply your deposit to your last bill. And then that would take care of itself. If you have an account that is 10 years or older and it's not active, then at that point, you would forfeit those dollars. It would go back into the city because we don't have a way of locating you or finding you, and the account is not active anymore. So again, that would be a part of an ordinance that I would have to bring back to council. But that's information for you to consider if that is something that council desires to do.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, ma'am, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Terry, thank you for the presentation. I'm in favor of doing away, eliminating the deposit as well. My question is, the oldest unapplied deposit, 1926, do we have a way to rectify that, or is there a solution for that?
No, and I'm gonna tell you why. We've had so many issues with shutting off service, bringing on service. You all as council get the calls. Remember, only active accounts. So if it's an inactive account, that means it hasn't transferred. We probably tried to submit a deposit to replenish, and it comes back. So after so many, after it going back and forth, it just sits in escrow. Being able to take the time or having the staff to do that, I don't know, I can't give you a time of how much time that takes. But we struggle with even having enough staff to do some of these things. So it actually would relieve some of the stress off the staff and having to do that, and applications could go a little faster. Not that that is answering your question, and I'm sorry I don't have a real solid answer for you, but I just believe that after 10 years, we have to write it off. We've taken a loss on the other side of it. So why not use these funds to replenish what we've had to write off for our expenses associated with outstanding accounts,
Right, okay, thank you.
if that's fair.
That's fair.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, Ms. Terry, I just want to go back to that setup fee again. That increase is bothering me because the justification as far as the employees have to go out there and set the boxes and so forth, that's part of their job anyway. The city isn't incurring any additional costs with that. And then also, aren't we increasing the water bills by 5% annually? And so to me, unless there's a significant increase in cost that the city is incurring, I would like to see that stay at the $25 where it is now.
Okay, and I will do whatever the desire of council, but let me throw two things out, and maybe I should have worded that in a better way, because you're absolutely correct. It is their jobs, but we're dealing with outdated stuff. So in other words, the meters that are manual now have to go electronic. Someone has to go and put that out. Not saying that it's not their job, but that's an increase of cost to the city to purchase the meters. So I'm looking at trying to offset some of the costs that go with technology as we move forward. And we're also trying to upgrade the system to make sure that we're technology automated. So that is associated with the cost of why this setup fee would be increased. Also, we do have increased rates that we do every year. However, we were so behind. And that is just a matter of catch-up, not so much as bringing in something new, but trying to maintain what we have in place already.
So do we have an idea of how much is going to cost the city in converting from manual to electronic meters? Or how much we've already incurred?
I do, my apologies, Dr. Whitaker, it's been a couple of months, I've been off the job, but I'm back. And I have to go back to my notes to pull that, but I can provide that.
Right, not tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. My question was electronic meters. We've been in that transition for a long time. Matter of fact, as I said here, I'm surprised that that transition hasn't been completed.
No.
because there lies the no expense of changing water hookups or turning water off, turning it off. What's been the holdup? Do we know?
I can't speak to that today. I can tell you what the holdup, in my opinion, was before. Before, as we were converting these meters, it became a supply and demand, a shortage. As you could, if you maybe hear some of the citizens says, I got this new meter and my top doesn't fit, because they were buying maybe tops that they purchased them, but they may have come in wrong. And so those needed to be replaced. So we just have a plethora of things that we need to grab a hold to and get right for our citizens as we continue down this road to upgrade technology. But we're in the midst. The last time I checked, it was because there was a shortage on those meters. Because, again, we're locality and they're fighting for supplies. That's what I won't. To be honest, I wasn't here long enough to know how long we've been fighting this battle. But where we are now, we're trying to complete it so that we will not have to have this conversation again.
Are we 60% there, or
Oh,
do
yeah.
we know?
So the last I checked, we were probably short maybe 4 or 5, I won't say that. Maybe, I'm not going to speak to it, I'm sorry, because I don't want to throw out a number that's incorrect and have to be held to it.
Maybe you can come back at a,
Ombudsman can help me with that. We'll have that information to you in a report back.
yeah, I'd be interested, because if we still have a lot of manual meters out there, I could see where the expense of hookups we
Yeah.
incur is going to be a lot higher, obviously.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
We're going to go to Councilman Tillage and then to Dr. Whitaker. So Councilman Tillage, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, first of all, I want to thank you for being proactive on this issue and bringing this to our attention. As far as the deposits are concerned, I'm in agreement with some of my colleagues about eliminating the deposit. However, in regards to the setup fee, I would like to get more information, because you may mention that the money would be going towards upgrades that are definitely needed in our city. So as Councilman Moody mentioned, the reports on what the current state is and what it's going to take to bring us up to date, it would be nice to see the report on that, to see how much it's going to cost, number one, and so that we can determine if there does need to be an increase in setup fee. But, based on the information that I know, or think I know, I think that it might be good to have a $50 setup fee, because it's still a reduction, a total reduction of $195 down to $100 with the deposit. So we're easing the burden for many of our most vulnerable families here in the city of Portsmouth. And so I'm very curious to see that report. Hopefully we can get that in a timely fashion.
I do have a question. Would it please the council if I brought it back to council so that the public will be aware? And that way we're all getting the same message and as we continue to promote this. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. And in addition to that, I know Dr. Whitaker wanted the floor, so sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Councilman Moody was speaking to, the percent completion, instead of how much we've already spent, the percentage of what's left to be done, because if it's already significantly it's been completed, then that's I would assume monies that has already been accounted for. But what
That's
is
fair.
not complete.
That's
so,
fair.
yeah.
That makes sense.
So with that discussion, are we okay with moving forward with what was recommended by the interim city manager in terms of the information being brought back so that we can see what the impact of the fees actually are and what they are year to date? In addition to that, getting a greater sense so that we can make an informed decision. So that will come back to what you just indicated in another report, and it will be a public report just like this report.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, sir. You have the floor.
In that report, it seemed like it was consensus of council that the 170 be dropped. eliminated. So when you report back, can you report it as that
Okay.
being done?
And I would,
Effective date.
I would agree with that. I think, a show of hands would, just to be official, is there a show of hand to reduce to 170? So you have that direction, ma'am?
Okay, and that would be effective for the new budget year, July 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Terry on this matter? Thank you, ma'am. You may proceed with your items.
And if it pleases council, I would like to do my presentation here in regards to public empowerment session dates. Oh, look at that. Oh. Did the most. Okay, so what we have here is something that we want to do new. I'm sure it's not new, but to maybe bring something back. As I worked through the budget over the last couple of years with the city, I realized, or come into council meetings, that the public wants to know. And it's also nice to hear what the public wants to know about so that we can move forward in doing some things with the city. So what I propose is a public empowerment forum. This only seems to work because council has decided to move the retreat date. So that's it worked. So the proposed date for the public empowerment forum, or what we call sessions, would be Thursday, February the 9th and Thursday, February the 16th between 6 and 7:30 p.m. The city manager's proposed topics for discussion are City Hall, the City Jail, Naval Museum, code changes, infrastructure, proposed budget for 2024, downtown development, and economic development. These seems to be hot topics within the city, so it would be nice if I could get some citizen input, or just where do their vision for the city. It just allows me and helps me during the proposed budget. Citizens will be able to register and submit their proposed topics of discussion. They would be 5 minutes to allow citizens to have that time. Topics will be open for discussion, and it will allow me to take on some new ideas. Okay, I'll repeat it. And unlike before, does council have any questions for me?
Councilman Hugo, and then after you, Councilman Tillage. Sir, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Ms. Terry. So I'd like to propose that we add a discussion about crime prevention or crime.
Oh, absolutely.
I understand that the new chief has a new crime prevention plan.
So, I'm sorry.
I don't know that any of us have seen, but I'm interested to know what the plan is from his perspective and also from yours, and in particular with the budget discussions coming, to make sure that we're properly resourcing
Public safety.
technology, 911 system, all the issues that are out there swirling around crime.
So I guess the first question I have for council is, I would need authorization to be able to hold this if this is the desire of council, and if they would allow me to do so.
Well, first, I know that before we get there, I know Councilman Tillage had the floor, and I want to be respectful of him. And then Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So my question is in regards to the location for these forums. I would like to see us have a location that is more accessible to the community, to allow people from the community an opportunity that may not have transportation or may feel a little discomfort coming into the building of City Hall. As you all know, we have many different issues that plague our city, and it comes from different communities, and so not every community has the same issues. So to be able to allow at least one of these forums to be in the community and to hear from the citizens that may sometimes feel disenfranchised against, to allow them an opportunity to speak, I think would be appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, that was my concern as well. How wide of a net will this be in involving all aspects of the community?
Yeah, so one of the reasons I wanted to do this is to definitely get the feedback, but to be able to secure a location and to have people register so I'll know how many people. And again, tonight it was more so asking or requesting to allow me to do it, the proposed dates, and then I would come back to council and just say, this is the direction I received, and this is what we're gonna do. So if there's something that I may have missed, I would ask council to advise me, just like you did on the topics.
I would say that there appears that there should be multiple locations other than just one, so that you can get, as Councilman Tillage mentioned, involvement from different communities, because different communities have different issues, and I agree. And so that may be something to make it a little more flexible.
And Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to just add, I know we got all excited about the presentations with City Park, and I didn't want that to drop off the radar. So if that could be one that could be added to the list. I know we met with a group that was, brought us some plans for developing and making some changes to City Park. So if that could be one of discussion as well.
Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
I would like to see public safety added to it, and it kind of dovetails with what Councilman Hugel suggested.
Wonderful. And so what I also do is I'll provide, as we work through the details within the next week, my staff and I will provide that information if there's something I miss, and then I'll just bring it back so we can announce it and give people enough time to be able to register.
Thank you, ma'am. If you would proceed with your next item.
So I'm going to turn the next item over. These are the ARPA gift card updates, and this will be presented by Ms. Kiara Pope, who is the accounting administrator for the Department of Finance. For the city of Portsmouth within the Department of Finance.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, Ms. Pope. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and interim city manager. Like Ms. Mimi said, I am Kiara Pope. I am the accounting administrator here at the city for the finance department. And my presentation this evening will be on the ARPA gift card audit.
Ms. Pope, before you proceed, can everyone hear Ms. Pope? I just want to be clear. Could you
Okay.
please
Is it speak up or?
speak up a little
Okay.
bit? Yes, speak
I
more
can
clear,
yell.
more closer to the mic. I mean, you don't
Okay.
have to bend down, I don't
Okay.
think. It's just bring it more to your mouth and maybe speak up a little bit more.
Okay.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
good? It's
Yep,
better?
that
Okay.
sounds better, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. What do you need to know? ARPA gift cards were purchased for city council approved programs to provide citizens relief relative to the spread of COVID-19. The three highlighted programs were previously approved ARPA projects. Like I said, it was previously approved by council on March the 8th and February 8th. The programs are the Senior Care Incentive, Universal Basic Payments, and the COVID-19 for Youth Incentive. Did the city conduct an audit of the gift cards? Yes. The accountants of the finance department conducted a 3-day audit led by myself. The gift card audit started on January 4th and ended January 6th of this year. The below participants confirmed the number of cards on hand on October 11, 2022. Those departments are the City Treasurer's Office, the Risk Manager, the Department of Social Services, as well as the Police Department. What was the cost of the audit? The city used existing resources, the finance department, to perform the audit. There was no additional cost to perform this audit. The external auditors, Cliff Larson and Allen, were here on December 19th to provide the external audit opinion. What source documentation was used to conduct the audit? We use invoices of the purchases, packing slips, delivery tickets, signed confirmation on hand, which I mentioned the 4 departments that confirm the number of cards on hand, as well as participant applications and the sign-in sheets for the participant applications. How many gift cards were purchased and distributed? A total of 16,075 gift cards were purchased. It has been confirmed that the distributed amount was 5,200 cards, leaving the total amount confirmed on hand of 10,875 gift cards. And there's a breakdown of the programs that receive the cards. You have the youth program, the senior program, the social services program, and a reoccurring program participant. Okay. What were the findings or results of the audit? No gift cards were missing, and no money was missing. All cards and applicants have been confirmed and counted. What does it mean that the cards will expire? The cards do not expire. Any card that has a balance will be charged a monthly service fee after the first 12 months. And these are our source documents. This picture right here, it includes the vendor number, the phone number, the vendor name, all of the quantities of the cards that was purchased, as well as the denominations and the invoice numbers. This slide represents where the PDFs or the scanned copies of applications are located. As you can see, each is numbered with how many applications are in each file. This slide represents the amount on hand counted by our social services department, which you can see is signed. This slide represents the police department amount confirmed on hand. This slide represents the treasurer's amount of confirmed cards on hand. This concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Councilman Hugel, sir, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So there was also discussion about activating cards. Is activating cards an issue? Is there an activation required? If they're activated, does that mean they can be spent? What is the activation question?
I'm assuming the activation question is because they have different activation amounts. Different activation dates. So depending on when they were activated, the 12-month expiration date where they will begin to incur the $395 fee, that varies. But I have activation dates for each batch of cards if that information wants to be.
And so have all the cards been activated?
Yes. No?
Not the 500.
Okay, well, not the 500 then.
No. And
I apologize.
I'm sorry.
You have the floor, ma'am.
No, sir, all cards have not been activated.
And so the cards that have not been activated, we're not going to incur a fee until those cards get activated, and then 12 months later, we'll incur the carrying charge?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, ma'am, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Ms. Kiera Pope, thank you for the presentation. I guess the question that our listening audience, our resident citizens want to know is, where did the $300,000, I know there was no cost incurred in this audit that was done by the finance team, but where did the idea of the $300,000 come into play?
I really wasn't involved in the cost of what an external audit may cost. I was only involved in our external audit with CLA, not necessarily any conversation about an external auditor coming in and doing this type of audit. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, Ms. Pope, thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Your report dealt with accounting for the number of cards. Is that correct?
Say that again?
Your report here deals with basically were there any missing cards?
Correct, and how to account for the number of cards that
Right.
were distributed. Yes, that's where I came in.
Right. So the issue has never been whether cards were missing. That was not the issue.
Okay.
The issue was not a counting issue. It was an accounting issue.
Okay.
That is, being accountable for those cards,
Okay.
which I know this report doesn't address, because we are saying no cards are missing, that was never the issue.
Okay.
Issue becomes who received the cards, and I'm saying that's not addressed in this report.
Okay. I was
Right.
given the task of counting the cards
Right.
that were accounted, that were given out, not
Right.
necessarily
Right, and that's been
the
a
process.
that's been a misrepresentation that has been given. There's never been an issue about whether the cards were missing. It was being accountable for those cards. And so I think that's really at the crux of what this is. Now, when it's mentioned that no money was spent on this, $0, and the question was asked by Councilwoman Lucas Burke, where did the $300,000 go? Or what? How did we come to $300,000? Is that was the count? Yeah, I think a fairer way to really answer that is that we need to see the scope of work that was requested by the audit. The forensic audit involved more than just
Correct.
accounting for some ARPA cards. Okay, and you will note that there was a presentation given to council at the December 13th meeting by the interim financial officer.
Correct.
Interim chief financial officer. And in that presentation, which citizens can see, she laid out 4 areas that audit was to address.
Correct.
And so the 300,000 is not just for accounting for those ARPA cards.
No, I
But they were
understand.
also, I know, I'm just making sure
Okay.
that the public is clear that it also dealt with 3 other areas. And so the scope of work should reveal how that amount was derived. And so I think that would be information that council should see as far as trying to determine that dollar figure, and it should be made public, because that's a legitimate question. And that's not going to be answered just here this evening. That would be documentation that should be provided to council that shows that scope of work. And so I just want to point out that what was presented here was not the issue of the forensic audit. The forensic audit
Correct.
was not supposed to entail just some missing cards, but
Yes.
who received, and then, as I said, there were 3 other areas as
Yes,
well.
I believe it was the grant employees at Parks and Rec, vehicle services, a plethora of things
Public.
outside of this.
Like I said, that's why I think it would be good for council to receive the scope of work documentation that
Okay.
the finance office has, so that then we can intelligently address the dollar figure of that forensic audit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
One of the things I will add to the discussion, is there any other, Councilman Moody, sir, do you wish to have the floor?
Thank you. My question is, do the remaining cards have any cash value back with the vendor? In other words, are they redeemable for cash?
To the vendor?
No, back to the city from the vendor.
I think what his question is, Madam Interim City Manager, is the existing cards that are still available, could they be redeemed for a dollar amount and take those funds from the existing cards and put back in the city treasury?
That's what I had asked.
Or return
Yeah.
it back to the vendor, no.
Okay. And the reason why I ask, because we have a lot of needs out there. We still have pump stations down, et cetera. And only a little over a third of the cards have been distributed thus far. So if it was some way we could redeem that back to the city in the form of cash value, I think that would be put to a better use. And I hope this is maybe a lesson, if you may, that the city doesn't need to be in the gift card business. I don't think it's the way to do business. The other thing is Dr. Whitaker brought up, are we going to get the audit on the other pieces, the vehicles, the grants? Is someone going to be working to resolve those questions?
Madam Interim City Manager, ma'am, would you like to address that question?
Yes, sir.
You have the floor.
Let me, to lead up to that, the reason that one of the reasons that this became a concern was that there were allegations that money was missing. It went from $3,000 to $30,000 to $80,000, and that's what brought this to light. The concern of the forensic audit came about in relation to the cards, or being said that cards were missing. Now, from my understanding, the scope of work only covered the forensic audit associated with the cards, because it was a document I found in the office in my transition. An RFP has yet to be provided or created. And I will ask the procurement director, also the acting CFO, to speak to that, to say if a RFP had even been created. A forensic audit at $300,000, I'm not sure where that dollar figure came from, because a forensic audit also entails attorneys. You have to have a real scope of work in association with the forensic audit. And maybe one of the things that I could come back to council so they would understand what a forensic audit really is, what it entails, and what the scope of work would need to be identified. $300,000 doesn't even touch what a forensic audit is and what the cost would be until you have really and truly identified the scope of work associated with the forensic audit. And the forensic audit goes beneath the surface, and it's just not about a card. It goes really beneath the surface. And to have all those things that council desires to involve or to add into the scope of work, you're going to be looking at starting $1 million. But again, I will have the auditors come and give an overview so everybody is clear of what a forensic audit is versus an external audit. And if I would just, so that I'm not speaking out of terms, Ms. Taylor, could you please address the council as to whether an RFP had already been submitted to request that a scope of work was provided, if an RFP was even done to procure an auditor on this matter?
As of today, I have not seen anything as it relates to an RFP for those services.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay?
Thank you. Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Well, to that point, the information that was provided to council was very general, no details. I would think before that we would expend money on any type of audit, that staff could certainly ascertain whether there's really anything valid there worth chasing or not. Because once again, that was just a generalized statement as presented to council.
Thank you, sir. And the last thing I want to do to wrap up this matter, and then we have a need to go into a closed session. There were allegations that money was missing as it relates to the gift cards. They were public allegations made, and it was very real. And what I think it spoke to as the leader of this council and as an elected leader by the citizens of this city, for me, it came to the core of trust in government and what we are doing to ensure that we are being good stewards of the resources of the people who elected us. So as a result of that, I commend our interim city manager of bringing forth this information to do one thing as it relates to the gift cards. Yes, we can look at other things perhaps, but as it relates to the gift cards, it was an allegation and trust was on the table. And by providing this information, there were no cards missing, zero. It speaks to the fact that we want the citizens to know that this council, all of us, are interested in providing accurate and truthful information as it relates to how we manage this city going forward. So I want to commend you, ma'am, and your team on helping us as a council and as a city to put the matter of the gift cards to rest. And so with that, we can close out this portion. Sir, you have the floor, Dr. Whitaker.
Before you put the matter to rest, again, I think that there needs to be documentation provided to council as to the scope of work. Again, let me reiterate that the issue was not dealing with the missing cards. The issue was dealing with accountability as to whether policy, and this is all on the video recording of the December 13th meeting for citizens to go and view. It dealt with the accountability, whether procedures were followed, who received the cards, was it in accordance with guidelines. That's what the forensic issue is. It's not whether cards were missing or not. So I think that it needs to be information that is brought to council as far as what that scope of work involved.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Duly noted. I think we can respectfully disagree. We are putting this matter on the gift cards to bed. As a council, I believe that's the best course. If there's an additional discussion we need to have as a council in moving forward with other items, I think that the interim city manager and her staff can bring that back to us in an appropriate way so that we can respond. And so as we conclude this discussion, that is, I think, what needs to be done. And so that matter is closed. If we could come to the next item, which is we have a need to go into a closed session. So if someone would please read the closed session motion.
I have it. I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A.8 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel employed by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice, specifically regarding the Southeastern Public Service Authority and transfer stations, and pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A7 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, specifically regarding Sunshine Swenson and pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A8 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel employed by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice specifically regarding severance agreements.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes is absent. Mr. Hugel?
Aye.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. We are now in closed session. We do have a need to certify coming out of closed session. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that each council member certify that to the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes is absent. Mr. Hugel?
Aye.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. That concludes our closed session, and we will be adjourned until the start of the regular session at 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you.